A Russian man has staged a solo protest in Moscow against Russian President Vladimir Putin. The video posted on Telegram app on Tuesday shows the man holding Putin Hitler poster on the Bolshoi Moskvoretsky Bridge and then jumping into the river, pretending to be a corpse. Rescue workers who arrived in the scene pulled the man from the river. According to Telegram channels, the activist is now in an ambulance, with about 8 police officers standing nearby. The identity of the protesters is unknown. It should be noted that there is a growing discontent in Russia against Russia's full-fledged invasion of Ukraine that started in February 2022.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has stated that he is constantly thinking about a successor and that several candidates will probably be chosen, and then something like a casting will begin. Ukrainian political scientist Vadim Denisenko explained what this means. First, the topic of a successor has been taboo in Russian politics for quite some time, and the previous presidential elections held in March 2024 seemed to put an end to this issue. However, a situation has developed in Russia in which the taboo on a successor has not prevented the elites from actually living within the logic of the transition of power. Second, what is the logic of the transit? First of all, in the system of global redistribution of property. The redistribution is happening in the interests of 7 families: Chemezov, Patrushev, Kirienko, Rothenberg, Kovalchuk, Sechin and Kadirov, although the latter has not received anything over the past year. It seems that this group of people is becoming a new super elite. At the same time, the Patrushev-Chemezov tandem remains the most powerful, despite the fact that Patrushev has de facto lost his status as an overseer of the security forces. Third, it is worth dwelling separately on the fact that the latest catalyst for the successor theme was Putin's special envoy, Dmitriev, whom some immediately began to classify as a family protégé, due to his closeness to Putin's daughter. Also, with a high degree of probability, we can say that Dmitriev himself was subjected to a certain obstruction by the old guard. At the same time, it is definitely too early to talk about Dmitriev as a family protégé. Fourth, it is important to pay special attention to the fact that Russian society has long been pregnant with the idea of a successor. Sociological studies have shown that more than half of the population is afraid that Putin will die without appointing a successor, and a third believes that there is a successor, but they will not be shown him yet because it is too early. But, of course, Putin is of little interest in the opinion of the people in this matter. The main reason for the announcement of a successor, apparently, is connected exclusively with elite games. Fifth, so what could have been the catalyst for this statement? First of all, we must proceed from the fact that there will be no successor in the near future. Secondly, Putin still sees his main political role exclusively as the only possible arbiter. Thirdly, such statements are made for 2 reasons. Either because of uncertainty and paranoia, or this is a trick so that his entourage will start asking him to stay and not go anywhere. And at the same time, he will test the faithfulness of his entourage. But I repeat, while there is no transition of power, Putin is not going to look for a real successor, but he has already started the game. So the gum about the new Putin has been launched. Well, we need to remember, our greatest threat is the absence of any ideology other than the ideology of the Russian world. 98 to 99% of Russians, including the apolitical and good ones, are to one degree or another adherents of this ideology. Bogdan Dolintz, aviation expert, member of the Public Council at the State Aviation Service of Ukraine, noted that a lot of military equipment will be accumulated and stored in Moscow on the eve of the May the 9th parade. There were reports that 280 air defense systems are being deployed to Moscow for the May the 9th parade. However, it should be understood that any air defense system has a certain efficiency coefficient. Of course, the more counter systems are installed and more interceptors are launched to destroy targets, the higher the probability of hitting aerial targets. However, no air defense system in the world guarantees 100% destruction of all targets, as we saw on May the 4th during the attack on Israel, when one of the most powerful air defense systems failed to intercept enemy missiles, commented the aviation expert on Espresso TV. He said another important point about the military parade in Moscow is that attacking certain targets during the event could put nearby civilians at risk. Ukraine adheres to international laws of war and is unlikely to attack the parade itself. However, the accumulation of military equipment in Moscow ahead of May the 9th and the storage of this equipment after the parade, considering it is mostly combat equipment, makes its destruction an important target. We understand that the decision to carry out such strikes falls within the realm of military actions. Moreover, the military operates based on intelligence information to determine whether these targets are truly top priorities today or if there are other equally important targets. It should be noted that we will also be limited by the resources and means available to us. This includes the number of systems we can launch, their characteristics, such as range and effectiveness in hitting targets. We see that periodically Ukrainian strike systems destroy targets. Let me remind you, a Russian Su-30 aircraft was destroyed recently, and such targets are no less important than hitting armoured vehicles on Moscow's territory. Striking armoured vehicles can be more challenging than hitting a critical link in the production chain of the enemy's military-industrial facility, noted Bogdan Dolintz. Military journalist Andriy Tsaplienko reported that 280 air defense systems were deployed to Moscow ahead of the May 9th military parade.